guys, it's a new week and we're back for some more transfer rumours. Let's jump into it. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. We've got quite a bit to go through in today's video. We've got a few of the midweek matches which we'll quickly go through. As always, if you went to any games in midweek, get your thoughts on them in the comments down below. We've had loads of completed deals go through over the past week or so as well, and of course we've got some transfer rumours to dive into as well. In terms of the midweek fixtures, the pick of the games from Tuesday was probably Birmingham up against Peterborough, ending as a 2-2 draw. We certainly saw a lot more from Peterborough in terms of an attacking sense, which hasn't really been all too present in their games recently, but to let that slip was so disappointing. 3 points in that game would have been absolutely massive for them. Birmingham obviously salvaged things by getting back into the game, but I don't feel like that would have done all too much to sort of ease the tempers there. Overall for Birmingham, it was still a really poor looking performance. Luton beating Bristol City by 2-1. I think that was one that I correctly predicted. Quite a few people had Luton winning that one. Coventry beating Stoke as well. Victor Gyökeres back on the score sheet for that one. Quite disappointing from Stoke after the weekend. Nottingham Forest putting 3 goals past Barnsley. Barnsley just looking like a bit of a lost cause at the moment, but Nottingham Forest continue to build on that momentum they picked up over the weekend. QPR against Swansea finished as a goalless draw. And then in midweek at the Hawthorns, it was Preston who walked away with all 3 points. Our first win at the Hawthorns since the 70s. I can't say that I was all too optimistic going to the ground, but I was sat in the away end and about sort of 15 minutes into that game, I think everyone in that away end sort of felt like, okay, we got a chance of really doing something here, because you could tell from pretty much the off that West Brom weren't really at it in this one, and it's amazing that they've gone this far into the season unbeaten at home. I know there's been a lot of sort of close shaves with late goals and, you know, sloppy performances which have been covered up by those late goals at times, but really poor stuff from West Brom here. You could feel it in their crowd as well, you know, particularly at full-time, half-time. I think that result really puts Ishmael under pressure going into the weekend now, because the top two starting to slip away from them. And even, you know, if they find themselves in a situation where they're fighting to keep hold of a playoff spot, that'll be an absolute disaster of a season for West Brom. We've also got some other things going on behind the scenes there with the Sam Johnston situation, the injury to Daryl Dike as well. So yeah, a lot of turbulation at West Brom at the moment, but for Preston, what a win for us. Great to get back to winning ways. Ryan Lowe seems to have everyone fit and firing. Some great individual performances from that one as well, and Cameron Archer banging on his debut. But those are some of the matches we had going on over midweek. Now without any further ado, let's go into some of the completed deals we've seen over the past week in the Championship. So in terms of some of the completed deals we've seen in the Championship over the past week, we saw Preston complete a deal for Cameron Archer coming on loan from Aston Villa for the rest of the season. Definitely a position that we needed to look into. I'm not sure Maguire or Sinclair are the best fit into this new system. Cameron Archer, someone who looks like a really natural finisher, had his brilliant debut against West Brom. I'm sure that goal will do his confidence the world of good, and yeah, really excited to see how he sort of develops over this year for Preston. And one player going out from Preston is Josh Harrop. He's completed a loan deal to Fleetwood for the rest of the season. We saw Sheffield Wednesday complete a loan deal for Birmingham defender Harley Dean for the rest of the season. That's now Jordan Storey and Harley Dean that they've added into their backline on loan now, Sheffield Wednesday. Harley Dean's always been a bit of a weird one, really, because obviously he's been Blues captain for some time now, but his relationship with the fans has always seemed a little bit prickly there in terms of the highs and lows of his career at Birmingham, so a loan move here didn't come as a massive shock to me. Sheffield United completed the deal for Stoke goalkeeper Adam Davis. He's coming in to challenge Wes Foderingham for that #1 spot at Sheffield United. Always quite liked Davis, to be honest with you. I know that he had a few dodgy games throughout his time at Stoke, but injuries didn't help him at times, and I remember when he first got his run in that Stoke squad, he was absolutely fantastic for them after doing really well at Barnsley before that. But I suppose with Bursic coming back into the picture at Stoke, that's why he's made this move perhaps. Blackpool completed the loan signing of Charlie Kirk for the rest of the season, I think with the option to purchase him at the end of the season as well. This one making sense for Blackpool. They were certainly in need of another wide man after Mitchell went out. They also have Keshi Anderson, who's out injured at the moment, Bowler, whose future is a little bit uncertain, and I have always quite liked Charlie Kirk, really. His transfer to Charlton seems like a really puzzling one from the outside looking in. Whilst he was at Crewe, there was tons of clubs who were interested in him, quite a few Championship clubs being mentioned back in the day, as I remember as well, but for whatever reason that move to Charlton just hasn't worked out, and this tends to fit in with Blackpool's sort of recruitment policy, picking up players when they've shown that they've got a bit of something in the past, but they sort of pick them up when they've had a bit of a stumble in their career. You know, I think they picked up Josh Bowler at a similar point in his career, really. So yeah, if all things go to plan here, it seems like a decent bit of business by Blackpool, to be honest. We saw Birmingham get a deal done for Gino Bacuna. He's coming over from Rangers on a 3-year contract, to play who we've seen plenty of in the Championship, obviously previously of Huddersfield. Didn't really get all too many chances to shine at Rangers, so a move away probably hasn't come as a massive surprise up there. We've seen Hull complete the signing of Sheffield United midfielder Regan Slater. It has felt like this one's been quite a long time coming. They were heavily linked with the move for him in the summer after previously having him on loan. It does feel very much like a Grant McCann sort of signing though, which is interesting because obviously they've recently gone ahead and parted ways with him. We're also seeing Hull being linked to a lot of, you know, players from the Turkish league at the moment, players from around Europe and things like that, but they've kept it to the Championship with this one. Regan Slater, who's not really had many opportunities for Sheffield United this season. Reading completed the signing of Arsenal goalkeeper Karl Hein, coming on loan from the season. Obviously they were looking a little bit light in this department after Raphael's departure. Jaden Philogene Binance has also moved over to Stoke on loan from the season from Aston Villa. This one we did mention last time in the rumours part of the video. But those are some of the completed deals we've seen go through in the Championship over the last week or so. Now without any further ado, let's hop into the rumours. So starting out with the Tom Lawrence news, reportedly Derby's administrators have turned down bids from both Bournemouth and QPR for the Derby captain. Now, Tom Lawrence is a really interesting one because he's only got 6 months left on his Derby contract. I believe he'll be one of the higher, if not the highest earners at the club, and also, you know, he's the club captain, so quite a lot of circumstances to be taken into consideration with this one. It's a tough one really because Derby, in the situation that they are in at the moment, off the pitch and on the pitch are two quite separate things at the moment. In terms of on the pitch, probably the one player in that squad who's capable of coming up with those game-changing moments just like that. I know he didn't have his best game at the weekend against Forest, but even so, he has consistently come up with those moments for Derby throughout the season, and the rest of the year would look significantly more difficult without Lawrence in that side. His Derby career has been a little bit inconsistent really. He's had quite a few sort of peaks and troughs throughout his years, but at the moment he's certainly at a high with Derby in terms of the season he's had for them so far, and on the pitch he'd be a massive loss. Off the pitch, to ease some financial issues, maybe this one ends up going through if the right fee comes in. Festy Ebicelli is also on the watch list of a lot of clubs at the moment, with Nottingham Forest reportedly having a bid of around 500k turned down for the Derby youngster, and even now we're seeing a few clubs around Europe also linked with him. Ebicelli is a fantastic talent. I remember watching Derby come to Deepdale earlier on in the season, and Derby played really well for that game, but the one player that caught my eye the most probably was Ebicelli. His ability to carry the ball from those deep positions, how quick and agile he actually is, and at only 19 years old as well, it's clear to see why there would be an abundance of interest in this one. Forest certainly looking to capitalise on this situation. They've been linked to a few Derby youngsters so far in this window, but they've been turned away for the time being. And we've had big news in the Brennan Johnson situation, with Nottingham Forest reportedly turning down a club record bid from Brentford for his services of around about £18 million. So Forest really sticking to their guns with this one, and I mean, in one sense you have to admire it really. Usually the general food chain of, you know, Championship clubs selling to Premier League teams, when an offer like that comes in, more often than not, probably like 80% of the time, the player ends up leaving. But Forest have that feeling around the club and the city at the moment. I think that something is happening this season under Steve Cooper. They're on the charge for the top 6 right now. Brennan Johnson is a key player in that side, and they're not willing for anything to sort of throw them off that trajectory at the moment. So for having that sort of stance, I mean, you've got to respect it. And West Ham aren't going away at the moment in terms of their interest in Blackburn's Brereton Diaz. He's of course away on international duty at this point in time with Chile. But yeah, a story which just won't go away at the moment. We've seen quite a few Premier League clubs being linked to Diaz so far, but it seems like West Ham have that most concrete interest. Reportedly, they've narrowed down their sort of striker targets in this window down to two, Brereton Diaz being one of them and Southampton's Brozier being another. I think because of the situation that they find themselves in now, the fact that they're second in the league, my gut feeling has slightly changed on this one. I've got to admit, at the start of the window I was pretty sure that he was going to go, but the more time that has gone on, I do have the feeling that he's going to stay. I just feel like it'll take an absolute monster of a bid to take him away from Blackburn at this point now. You know, they have that option on his contract to extend it by another year. So if, you know, Blackburn aren't promoted this year, they'll still have the option to get, you know, quite a sizable chunk for him in the summer. Probably not as much as they would get right now, but they're in such a good league position at the moment that it would seem like a little bit of a waste if he was to go now and they were to, you know, have to throw around a couple million in the last few hours of the transfer window to try and replace him. Watford's Domingos QUINA is being linked with a move to Swansea on loan. Now, he's currently at Fulham, but looks like he's going to be getting recalled after not really featuring all too much with them this season. I think he's only been involved in 2 championship matches so far for Fulham, who have got quite a stacked midfield in that area, to be honest with you. And he's been a player who I've been wanting to see in the championship for absolutely ages. I remember when Watford were initially relegated, I thought, okay, he'll get his chance now. I remember looking into him a little bit and he looked like such a talent, but he played a little bit of that season towards the start, then he ended up getting loaned out. Obviously this season got loaned out to Fulham, where we've not really seen him again. But in a side like Swansea, the sort of football they play as one of those players off the front two, you know, sort of behind Joel Perreault, this would be a tidy bit of business here, albeit it is, you know, another lone player going into Swansea. It's looking like Wigan Athletic have agreed a new deal for Tom Pearce, this one coming as interest to a few championship clubs, as he had been linked around recently with his contract running down, but it seems as if he's agreed a new deal with Wigan. Bit of a blow here for Michael Preston, really, who were in the market for a new left wing back, but it's looking like we'll take our business elsewhere. We're now seeing Cardiff being linked with a move for Borough striker Uche Ikpeazu. Now, this could hint towards maybe the future of Kiefer Moore here if we're putting 2 and 2 together, but Ikpeazu's not really been in the picture since Chris Wilder's come in, doesn't really fit the profile there, and with the strikers that Borough have recently brought in, it would only make sense that one of them was to make way, and it's looking like that will be Ikpeazu. In terms of a profile of player, certainly would suit sort of a direct style, but I suppose Cardiff have tried to go a little bit more progressive really under Morrison. But even so, not an out-and-out goal scorer, but is someone who will just cause havoc in the opposition box. His best days probably coming with Wickham before he made that move over to Borough, but did show some glances early on, to be fair, just doesn't really fit the system nowadays. And speaking of Kiefer Moore, that rumour with him currently being linked with Bournemouth isn't going away at the moment, and with that rumour recently popping up about Ikpeazu, maybe we could see this one getting over the line over the next few days. Speaking of Bournemouth though, in the past week they've had quite a few bids rejected. Joe Rothwell's been one player who we've been speaking about quite a bit in terms of links to Bournemouth recently, but they've also been heavily linked with a move for Peterborough's Siriki Dembele, who interestingly enough wasn't involved in the matchday squad in midweek in their 2-2 draw with Birmingham. Reportedly, Peterborough have turned down bids of 1 million and 1.5 million for the forward. His contract is expiring at the end of the season, but I wouldn't go as far to say that Peterborough's whole chances of survival hinges on Dembele, but a massive percentage of it does for me. His ability to get them up the pitch, wriggle out of tight situations, be a threat on the counter-attack, is almost irreplaceable for the position they're in at the moment, I feel like. He's caught my eye quite a few times so far this season. When Peterborough came to Deepdale, he was their only real shining light in that game, but they have stood fairly firm so far in their stance for this one, in turning 2 bids down for him this far. That will now wrap it up for today's video though, guys. As always, thank you very much for tuning in. Any other rumours that you've seen going around, make sure to get them in the comments down below. Make sure to tune in to tomorrow's video where we'll be going over our weekend predictions. Apart from that though, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.